right. Good morning, everybody. All right. So we are severely behind, which is actually significantly more than normal. So we might end up having some extra classes in case we need to get there. But yes, so we're making a we're so the structure of this course is we're just going through different lojangs. And last class we spent a significant time talking about the five poisons and the ways that those appear in our life and things we can do to create the opposite. So this next lojang is actually one of my favorites, and the story of the author of it is quite um, it's a lot of fun. But we actually hear the author's story later in the second class. So all right, let's get started here. Let me see. Nope, that's not it. There we go. Okay. So one of the things about Lojang that we've been teasing is this idea of secrecy. And what is it about Lojang that made it secret? Like, what is it that it's not secret in the sense of like knock, like secret teachings, like open and secret teachings, like sutra and tantra, sutra and diamond way. It's not secret like that. But for many years, these particular lojangs were kept in a way like a kadampa, like kind of a mennak rather, in the sense of private advices that were passed down from teacher to student. And I think it's worth exploring, like, what is it that made it secret? Like, what is it that? Sorry about that. Hold on. My screen, I can't get to the things I need. There we go. It's okay. So let me just step back. Like, what is it that? Why was the material taught in secret? I guess that's a better question. And really, it comes down to the difficulty of what the advices are actually saying, what they're actually asking us to do. And mainly, what they're asking us to do is to spend almost not almost, but each and every thought thinking about how it will help other people. And exchanging that from thoughts of how your actions will only benefit you. And it sounds easy, right? It sounds like, oh, I can make that shift, but it's not that easy. It's actually quite difficult. Because once you start actually doing the practices, it has this, there's a tendency for then people to get overly focused or overly, they realize how much of their own mind is wrapped up in only thinking of themselves. And I don't mean that self-care is a bad thing. That's not what we're talking about. You have to take care of yourself. You have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to do all of those things. But what is it that when you make that shift and you recognize how much of your thoughts are really only focused on yourself uselessly? And I think that that's probably what we should call it, right? We should call it like useless thoughts on the self. So don't get too depressed because unfortunately, this is where we're stuck. This is what we're doing anyway. We're just shining a light on it, right? We're just shining more light on the way that our minds operate, the way that our hearts are operating. But how many of those thoughts are really just useless thoughts? And how much protection that we place on ourselves, how much time we just spend thinking about our own needs, our own emotional wants, our own physical needs. And look, if your refrigerator runs out of food, how long are you going to be thinking about other people? I don't know. You want to believe that you're such a holy high practitioner, but wait till you're hungry for 3 or 4 days. Wait until the emotional toll of some kind of event takes over, right? And then things become very insular, right? And it's normal, it's natural. Don't worry about it. Okay. But we're fighting a huge tendency within ourselves. And then secondly, when you actually do these practices, when you do this, when you really do exchanging self and others, and you do it correctly, you should start feeling very uncomfortable. When you do an exchanging self and other meditation where you actually put your mind in someone else's mind, looking back at you and the way you treat that person, and then when your mind is in that other person and you're looking back at yourself, how does it feel to be you looking at you? How does it feel to be you receiving the messages or the communication or the actions from yourself? Like, this isn't like put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's really put yourself in the other person's shoes and then watch the old you and how the old you behaves. Then you'll get a real sense of what it's like to be around yourself. It's really, I mean, it's a great exercise to do in partnership. What is it like to be living? What is it like to live with me and all my weirdness and all my moods and all the things I say or the things I demand or the things that I don't say, the faces that I make, the emotional difficulty that I create. Right. If you actually did that practice well, it's extremely uncomfortable because then you get it. It's like getting we say in English, a dose of your own medicine. That would be a nice name for a course. You know, what is it like to receive your own medicine? Right. And you can do this exercise anywhere, really. Like the guy on the street who's asking for money, right? Obviously is in need. And you just ignore him when you walk by. Put yourself in their shoes. Looking back at you walking by ignoring them. How does it feel to be ignored? How does it feel to be destitute, not have any opportunity, regardless of the reason why? To be ignored by somebody. How's that feel? You know, you can do it in the office. You can do it with your coworkers. Right? You can do it to your boss. Like, what is it what is it like for my boss to have to interact with me as an employee? Am I nice? Am I compliant? Am I combative? Do I really not do what the boss wants me to do? Am I unpleasant to be around? You know, am I not doing my job? Not in this like self-deprecating, I'm a terrible person kind of way. But what is it like to be in the, in a work environment with me? Or what if I'm the boss and then I flip it over and I put myself in the shoes of the employee? What is it like to be an employee bossed around by me? Am I a good boss? Am I a bad boss? Am I aloof? Do I support my, do I feel supported? Or do I feel demoted? Do I feel unincentivized? Do I feel unimportant? Right. And then all of a sudden, you as the boss feel what it's like to be led by yourself. And don't do this ego thing where you just put yourself in other one's shoes and been like, oh, look, I'm such a great person. You could do that. I'm such a great boss. No, but you have to really become that person. What does it feel like? But there's not, it's hard. And that's why these practices are hard. Because if you really want to make these deep changes, you have to look at how your actions impact others. I had a discussion with somebody once about this practice, and they were adamant that I was wrong because we were talking about their performance actually. And they kept saying, well, that's your perception. Like that was their argument to me. Like I was saying, look, you do this, you do this, you do this, and this has X consequences. And they were using they were weaponizing the Dharma. They were saying, well, that's just your perception of how things are. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's true. And I said, but well, what is your perception of what's going on? Of course, they couldn't answer it because if they answered it, then they would have to recognize that their behavior was a certain way, that they were in ways that were unprofessional. So they stuck to their guns. They were like, that's just your perception. I was like, no, Anastasia, it wasn't you. Laura, it wasn't you. Everyone's, oh my God, he's talking about me. I haven't had those conversations with you. But no, but it was really that like they refused to look at their own behavior. Now that's my perception, right? That was what I was like, okay, well maybe I need to look at my behavior a little bit more. And I've tried, and this particular person has, helped me tremendously to be a better boss. Because like, okay, well, what is it like to have these conversations with me? Are they fruitful? Are they productive, or are they scary or critical? So when you really do these practices and you honestly do it, you should first of all feel pretty shitty about yourself because you'll see what your actions actually cause. But the flip side of it is that you can change yourself really quickly. And then watch the battle. Watch the battle ensue. Because even when you know the impact of your actions, then you're going to want to then you're going to feel all those other things, the eight worldly thoughts, or you're going to start feeling justified in your behavior. Well, I'm right and they're wrong. And then you'll feel this tension inside of you. Because you'll know what the right thing is, but your natural instinct will want you to behave in a different way. And then that's lojong. That's the development of your good heart. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time. It happens over, it happens over, can be years of practice. And when you do things like this, it actually confronts a lot of the things about ourselves that we may not like, that we may already be aware of. Like maybe we are really nervous with people, or maybe we have a tendency to not really ask for what we want. Do a little exchanging self and others, and then be like, what is it like to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't ask for what they want directly? What does that feel like? It probably doesn't feel very good. And then there's a million reasons why we don't ask for what we want directly, of course. Like what's motivating that? But if you really want to develop a healthy relationship, those are things that you have to confront about yourself. What is it like to be in relationship with me? In what ways am I emotionally manipulative? In what ways am I doing things just to get a hug or to get attention or to get love? And what does it feel like to be the recipient of those strategies? These are all these big questions, right? And if you're in a loving relationship, the person probably wants to help you. Nope, Marina, everything is not from you in this case. Don't go there. That's a misunderstanding of emptiness. Everything is from you, and you still have to behave that way. Don't argue with me. Stop chatting. Just listen. I saw you argue. It is true that things are coming from you, but it's a misunderstanding that you're the only one in the world. It's a misunderstanding to not engage other people. So actually do this work. Oh, by the way, that kind of perspective, if you just say everything is from me, is a perspective that keeps yourself insular as well, if not applied correctly. It protects it's a self-protection, it's a dharmic self-protection mechanism to not have to change. And that's why we have to do exchanging self and others. What is it to be like? What is it? How to say this? How does it feel to be the recipient of me? What is the experience that other people have of me? And if someone is having a bad experience, yes, it's coming from you and you're causing it. So you have to take care of it. Okay. And if we go deeper into it, yes, there are other people out there who have separate mind streams. So, what is it really like to be with you? What is it like to be? Is it good? What I'm not, these are also good things too, of course, right? But really, when you ask that question, it forces you to consider your behavior towards other people in a very, 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 very deep way. And that's why we're doing it. So we have this guy. So the next Lam Rim, excuse me, the next Lojang is called the Lojang Dundun, Lojang Dunduma. 7 points, Dun, on developing the good heart. And this is by a guy named Kadampa Geshe Chakawa Yeshe Dorje. All right. Well, we'll see his name in just a second. And he had a really kind of interesting perspective on why he should teach Lojang, even when it's only been passed from students to students, from teacher to student individually. Thank you, Anastasia, for putting the Tibetan in the chat. And he had this feeling. He said, I understand why this should be secret. I understand why we should keep this close. There's also a what was I going to say? I don't remember. So he really thought that if we keep it this way, who am I to judge the readiness of a student? So the main, oh, I know what I was going to say. So the main thing was that this teacher judges, evaluates whether a student is ready or not to do the practice, and then got the teaching when they were ready, if they were ever ready, if they were ever ready. And he had this perspective of, well, who am I to judge who's ready and who's not? He's like, I can't read their minds. I don't know what's going on. Maybe they do need it. And if I keep teachings to myself, what is that? Maybe like he's thinking about what karma that he's planting. And he felt that maybe there were some students who were ready that he just didn't know, right? Maybe he passed it on to one student who wasn't ready, but passed it on to someone else who was, right? And so there's this, he had this feeling that it should be something different, and he did something different, right? Which I think is really, it's bold. It's bold to go against tradition, and you have to be a really, really good practitioner to go against the wishes of your teacher too. And we'll see why in the next class, why maybe he was qualified to make that choice, right? And I think there's a deep teaching in it as well. It's like when do you when do you begin to make your own decisions, especially when it comes to lineage, right? Now, in general, your teacher isn't going to tell you what to do. Your teacher's not going to give you advice on life decisions. Or should I turn left or should I turn right? Should I move here or should I go there? They're not going to tell you those things. It's not their job. If you need a life coach, go find a life coach. Right? In that sense. But when it comes to the dharmic sense, like the advices they give, they're not even telling you what to do. They're just telling you how to plant the best seeds and how to avoid the worst seeds. Sakjang. That's all they're really doing. And then giving you pointers along the way to understand emptiness. That's all they can do, really. You know. So he had a thought, right? He had that vision that he should do this. So we get a fun lineage holder description right now, if you cared. And I think this is really important, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So here's our first guy. Here's the author of the Lojong Dundunma, Geshe Chikawa Yesigorje. Right, he lived quite a while ago, almost 1,000 years ago. So he had a teacher, and his teacher was Sharawa Yuntendrak. I don't have a picture. That's why it just says teacher. Couldn't find a picture of the guy. So his teacher, Sharawa's teacher, was Patoa Rinchen Sel. Here's a picture of him. We're going backwards in time. We're not going forwards. I'm doing it for a reason. And then previously went to Drontamje, who was considered Lord Atisha's best student, mainly a layperson, never ordained. He was the guy who funded everything. He was the guy who got all the money. And he was a very accomplished practitioner as well. So his teacher, as I said, was Atisha Joje. And if you remember the story, Atisha went to Indonesia to get teachings from his teacher, Serlingpa. And that doesn't make any sense. The dates. Something's not right. Something's not right with the dates. I'll have to fix that later because his teacher certainly wasn't born after him. Sorry. I'll fix that. And previous to that, we're missing some teachers in between. But previous to that was the great two brothers, Arya Sangha and Vasubandhu, from about 350 of the Common Era. So And then Arya Sangha got the teachings from Maitreya. All right. In his is in his vision, basically. In his and this actually is going to come up in the Lam Rim in about an hour and a half. Strangely, the Lam Rim is talking about the different types of visions of these high spiritual beings when they appear to us, and how what are the different ways that they can appear to us. And in Arya Sanga's way, it was face to face. Met him not in meditation, not because the winds entered the central channel or something like that, but because it was just a face to face karmic shifting from a dog to Maitreya. And so the Lojong we're going to be talking about is specifically the seven-step Lojong from Maitreya. All right. So the lineage, this is where it comes from. And then most recently, the lineage comes through Neutral Dharma Vajra, who's one of our Vajrayogini commentators, along with Pabonka Rinpoche. So Neutral Dharma Vajra obviously got it from his teacher, passed it to Pabonka Rinpoche. Pabonka Rinpoche had some students like Ken Rinpoche and Trijang Rinpoche. Excuse me, Trijang Rinpoche. And then Trijang Rinpoche had a student who was the teacher of Geshe Michael, Ken Rinpoche, and then Geshe Michael taught it to us. So why? Like I had this thought the other day. Why do we spend so much time talking about lineage? Why do we spend so much time talking about texts and dates and what's in those texts? Why don't we just tell you what's there? Why do we spend all this time? It's not always the most interesting part of class. At least I find it more interesting. Really, the main point is that so we can understand where it all came from, that it's not just something made up, that it's not just something that I'm giving a commentary on, that I'm not making this up. You can go find it. That's why we have the ACIP database, right? That's why, or the ALL database, they call it now. I mean, that's why we have all these things. There's a lot of lamas, and it's not a bad thing. There's a lot of lamas in the lineage who don't go through the history, and they're just teaching and they're commenting on it, right? And that's beautiful. But we think it's also important to know where it came from, so we're not making stuff up. Because again, in the Lam Rim that's coming up in an hour and a half, there's a whole section on what's the importance of understanding not only the lineage, but understanding the how do I say this? Teaching things correctly and not distilling it or changing it. Like as Tracy says, to keep it an unbroken chain. Because once you introduce one small wrong idea, the student doesn't know the difference. And then they have one wrong idea. And then they have a bunch of students, and then that wrong idea propagates like a virus. Right? So you can go back and check everything. Like the ACI courses, there's nothing in the ACI courses that doesn't come from somebody else. They're just translations. All right. And so it's very difficult to criticize when you can see that there's a lineage of it and you can trace it all back. Now, whether someone does that work or not, you're still going to get criticized, but that's your karma. But that's why we do this. And it's good to know who are all these characters. Like, who are all these people? So this comes from Maitreya. So what is, let me see here. Which, by the way, the lineage before Maitreya, who was the future Buddha, came from the Buddha himself, of course. So we're going to go through the 7 steps. All right. And then we're going to start getting into more of the details of what Geshe Chikawa says. What are the 7 steps of this particular lojong? Here we go. Step number 1 is called the foundation, the 10. Instructions on the foundation practices, the foundation preliminaries. Okay. And these are not the 7 ingredients. Okay. These are not the meditation preliminaries. These are a series of preliminary practices that get you ready to do lojong. And we'll talk about what they are in just a second. Okay, step 1, preliminary practices. We'll learn about what they are in a moment. All right. Step 2 is developing the wish for enlightenment. The bodhicitta, the Janchu Kisem. Right. And this picture is really about, I don't know if you do this in your countries, but when I'm as a kid here, you pick up these flowers and then you make a wish and then you blow on them and then the seeds go flying, right? And then the idea is that the wishes are going off to the world. So that's what we mean by bodhicitta, the wish for total enlightenment. And this, they say, is the practice of exchanging self and others. That's bodhicitta. And that's an interesting claim. If you want to develop a good heart, if you want to develop Janchu Kisem, if you want to develop bodhicitta, the main practice is exchanging self and others. Oh, okay. That's just step 2 of 7. And just to remind everyone, there's 2 types of bodhicitta. There's the normal type, right, which is wanting to reach enlightenment to help others. And then ultimate bodhicitta is the direct perception of emptiness. Okay. And so buried deep in that practice of exchanging self and others is a method to see emptiness directly. Somehow the power of putting yourself in the shoes of someone else and looking back at yourself and your own behavior is a powerful and method to getting at seeing emptiness directly. I'm sorry. I'm such a cat dad, but my cat is just ridiculously cute right now. She's sleeping. She actually is listening. There's something shifting. It's weird. My cats are actually listening to class. So I'll send the picture to y'all in just a second. Okay. Anyhow, so buried deep in that practice, and you have to think about why. Like, what is what is it about sorry what is it about putting yourself in that position that plants the seed for the deep realizations? You see, you got to think about it, and I want you to think about it very, very, if you think about it profound, if you think about it enough, you'll see what's going on, and then you won't be afraid to do it. Okay. And that's the thing, and that's what happens oftentimes, is that these practices get too intense, and then we don't understand why we're doing it. Yes. And now I need to show you the cute picture of my cat. This is what she's up to, listening to class. Yeah. Anyway, maybe there's a secret message in there. So after the wish for enlightenment, the third step is transforming, taking bad circumstances, taking problems, and then turning them into the path to enlightenment. Taking the obstacles in your life, taking your difficulties, and then turning them into the path. This is a road in the middle of the jungle in Malaysia. Like, take the difficulties that appear to you and make it useful. Don't waste your time with problems. You're going to have problems. So make those problems beneficial. Figure them out. Figure out how they can become the next step towards higher realization, or next step towards a higher state of being, or just a seed for something better. Right. And for me, this is a particular joke about an obstacle, because when I originally taught this course, I don't know, 2 years ago, 2 winters ago, 3, something like that, I was in Malaysia. And at the end of this path was a very beautiful cove, right? It was in a virgin beach. No one was there. It was really beautiful. You've heard the story. I almost went swimming, gorgeous afternoon. The water is amazing. The water is crystal clear. And then about 1 minute before I was about to disrobe and get in the water, you can barely see it here, but a crocodile ran into the water from the jungle, 2 of them. And that would have been the end of ACI director Tim. Right. So of course I couldn't just run away. I had to get close and take a picture, right? Because that's how smart I am sometimes. But that I learned something, right? I learned something very valuable, like just on that short little trip into the jungle by myself, where nobody was around, right? But the idea is that when you face difficulties, what do? You're always facing difficulties. You curl up onto the couch and whine about it. And frankly, you're allowed to. I give you permission to have a 30-minute meltdown. Okay. You're allowed to have a meltdown. You're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to just turn into a child and have a tantrum. Okay. I give you permission. It's not always the best seed, but you know what? Frankly, at the end of the day, sometimes you need it. All right. But give yourself a time limit. Break down for a certain, it's like the 4 powers. I will not plant a bad seed for the next 30 minutes. All right. Or I give myself 30 minutes to act like a baby and cry and do all the things and then turn it into a path. All right. Then the next day, give yourself 29 minutes. Then give yourself 28 minutes. You see, make sense? You know, give yourself permission to fall apart every once in a while. And then move on. You see, like what I do when I'm stuck in those spaces, I'm like, what could I do to help people? I dragged myself to the pool yesterday to translate. It's like, well, at least this will help people in the future, maybe. Right? Do something for other people. Duh. Get out of your stuff. How do you turn the obstacle into a path? That's how you become stronger. Get up. You still feel like shit. You're still grumpy. You still don't, whatever reason is going on for you, and go help somebody else. How did I help someone else? I translated something. I couldn't talk to people. I didn't want to see people. I didn't want to interact with anybody. I was like, I hate people right now. I don't hate people, right? But I didn't want to talk to anybody. So I went to the pool where I don't know anyone, and I sat there and I translated. Then of course I started feeling better, and then I got in the water and I swam around a little bit, and the world was good again, right? But that's get up and help someone. That's the point. Turn your obstacle into an opportunity to help someone. Because your obstacle, first of all, I'm sorry, but your pain is no different than anyone else's pain. Although it feels that way sometimes. It feels that way. Like I'm the only one who has to suffer like this. No one understands me. You know why no one understands you? Because you don't let anyone understand you. That's why no one understands you. But you're not the only one, right? And it doesn't mean it's not real for you, but get up and help someone else. Because if you could if you can help someone else who's going through the same problem, like if you were able to overcome it, then you get to be a living example for someone else. What the heck is that picture? What does that mean? Sometimes I do things and I have no idea what I was thinking. And I just did this yesterday. Hold on. Give me just one hot second to remind myself what the heck I was thinking. This is why we have notes. See, this is why I forgot. Okay. Because I forgot to say something else. Good job. Okay. So going back to the using problems as a path to enlightenment. All right. We're going to talk about this a little bit later. That's why. That's why I didn't talk about that. Okay. Never mind. Now I know what I'm talking about. Sorry, guys. Sometimes teachers have brain farts too. Okay. The next one, step 4. I think we're on step 4, right? This is step 1, 2, 3, 4. This is step 4. So after you're turning your problems into a path, the third one. So the fourth one now is It's called a summary of an entire lifetime of practice. Okay, so I have this picture of this guy who's kind of zombieing, dying, right? The idea is that when you think about your entire lifetime and you kind of put it all together, what should you be doing? Okay, right? How can you summarize all the instructions into a lifetime's worth of practice? And so we're going to learn about this in the next class, more details, but this summary of the summary, okay. The summary is that there's 5 powers. All right. There's 5 different powers that kind of come together as a summary of what your lifetime practice should be. And mainly that practice, how do I say this? You're taking care of future you. You're taking care of the future. Your future you will thank you for the good seed you planted today. All right. And that's the main point of all of this is where what happens is that when we have our meltdowns, stuff happens to us, good, bad, ugly. We're so focused on those things that are happening now that we forget about why they're happening right now. We forget that they're coming from previous actions, previous seeds that were planted. So lay on the couch for a half an hour, have your meltdown, and then go help somebody else. Why? Because future you will thank you. Future you will thank you for having done something for somebody else, because that seed will ripen in the future. Can you change how you feel right now? Not really. Sorry. Sure, you can try to do things. You can, first of all, eat better, sleep better, do all the things, exercise, right? But really, you can't change how you feel right now. You have to plant the seeds for a future you. So those 5 powers are, in fact, pretty much everything we're doing is geared towards creating a future. Whatever's happening to you right now was planted probably when you weren't thinking about your future. Or as Z contradicts me and says she celebrates the person she was in the past because it created the great moments right now. And I don't mean contradiction. It was just an example of someone who, when you look back at the good things, those good things were created by past you, and the bad things too. Should you be upset with yourself? No. Why? Because past you made that decision 10 years ago. Sorry. Like, don't worry about past you. They made decisions based on other understandings. But the good things in your life are also coming from those seeds as well. So you can be happy about those. And then what do you do next? You set yourself up for future you. Like, what do you want? Like, well, what if it's difficult, Tim? Yeah, it's going to be difficult. What if I'm having a bad day? You're going to have bad days. When you plant seed, like the best seeds are planted when you're having a bad day, honestly, because then you're doing something opposite to what's going on. Then you're going against the grain. You're going against what you really want to do, which is continue to have a meltdown all day. Next step, my favorite kid. my success kid. What is the point when you can say that you have developed a good heart? How do you determine you're like, yes, I've finally made it? How do you know when you've reached that? All right. And mainly, what Geshe Chikawa says, and we have to talk about a little bit more, is that when you start having spontaneous joy, it keeps going and you don't have to think about it, mainly. When you're just enjoying things and not thinking about it, and your life begins to take on an unbroken stream of goodness. And then you, of course, you understand why you have that experience as well. So next, after you've attained it, how do you keep it? Like, how do you keep that commitment? Okay. What are some of the commitments that one could take? They're kind of, we call them the pledges, and we'll talk about them later in the course. Things to help you maintain it. They're not vows. But they're pledges that one keeps. And then the last one, the number 7 one, is about private advices. Some of the private advices on developing that good heart and how to help others do it as well. All right, cool. Those are the 7. Let's go back really quickly, just so you can remember. The preliminary practices, what are they? We'll talk about that in just a second. The wish for enlightenment, which includes exchanging self and others. How do you develop it? Notice this is step 2. If you can't do step 2, you can't do the rest. All right. Third one, take the problems that appear to you and make them a path. Summing up, how do we create a summary of all the practices? Basically, why are we doing it? We're doing it for a future you. So you don't have this kind of life in the future. How do we know when we've had a successful practice? What are some of those pledges? Like, how do we keep it going? And then some private advices around it. All right, so very quickly here, we're going to run out of time if Tim doesn't speed up here. This course is full of so much information. So those preliminary practices, what are they? The first one is that you have a very, very short window of opportunity. These classes, and that window of opportunity will end very, very quickly. You only have a certain amount of good years left. There will be the last Dharma class. There will be the last time when you can come. When we look at everybody who's here, you know, who's going to be the first person to die in this group? You know, like in 5 years, you look at a group picture and be like, oh, I remember that person. Yeah, they died last year. You know, And everyone thinks, oh, it's not going to be me. That's what everyone who says who dies. Oh, it wasn't going to be me. Right. So our opportunity to practice is very, very small because you never know what's going to happen. Like, I drive to Phoenix twice a week, right? I drive safely. I do a pretty good job, I think. I put my seatbelt on. I don't drive too fast. I don't look at my phone, right? But what if there's a major car accident? Like this could be our last Dharma class, right? This could be the last time we see each other. Hope not. So when you're healthy, when you're relatively healthy and you have time to study, you should do it and practice. And tied to that, the second one is about death meditation. And understanding that the opportunity you have now is amazing, but the opportunity you had just to be born as a human is even more amazing. And the likelihood of it happening again is very small. And then thirdly, the last preliminary is meditating on the problems of the cycle of life. This is the world is defective because because we're all thinking that things are existing by themselves out there on their own. And until that shifts, it's just going to keep not working for you at all. All right. So those are the preliminary practices. Basically, you have a limited opportunity, death and rebirth, and then the problems with this life. Let's get into the text. So the first thing he says here is learn to see all things as a dream. What does that mean? So we're going to be we're going to get these little texts, which actually could be really good t-shirts, by the way, Anastasia. So first he says, learn to see all things as a dream. Which by now I hope you all can understand that it means to see things as having emptiness, which means that everything that we perceive is forced upon us by our good and bad deeds. And in that way, it's a dream. Is it not real? That's not what we're saying, of course. Right? It's not that things are an illusion because they don't really exist and you can do whatever you want. Is that the way that the world works is not the way it seems to work is not the way it actually is working. Like, if you want to get rich, don't work hard for somebody else. Become generous. Then you can work hard for someone else if you want, but you want to be generous first. If you want to be healthy, take care of the sick. Just going to the gym or buying vitamins isn't going to help unless you have the seeds for them to work. If you want to be super attractive, beautiful, right? You need to have compassion for other people. You have to avoid getting angry. right? And all of those things change your inner winds, right? You know, just to get what you want in general, you got to take care of other people. Help other people get what they want, then you'll get what you want, right? If you want a beautiful partner, you have to be very careful with your sexual energy, right? And understanding that a negative action cannot have a positive result. So all the bad things in the world come from your selfishness, basically. So, excuse me. So, understanding that everything is a dream, meaning where is everything coming from? The next line he says is examine the nature of your mind, it's unborn. So, we were just talking about outer things, we were talking about physical things. Your mind, as well, also is just like everything else. Your mind also has emptiness as well. you know, Having mental conditions in a certain way, like low self-esteem or depression or feeling like nobody loves you or worrying about the future, or all of those things are coming from past seeds, and they're coming from not having taken care of other people. So anything that's in your mind that you don't like is a projection like anything else. So your mind lacks any nature of its own. It's unborn, right? It has emptiness. So both the physical and mental aspects of the world are empty. And we forget that, of course. We forget that when we're sitting on the couch having a meltdown. We're not like, I wonder why I have to see this, right? You're ruminating on other things. So he says the antidote to this is self is gone to is. I don't know how to translate that, translators. But the idea is that the antidote is a mind of wisdom. And what this means, because, so a mind of wisdom will catch the emptiness of the physical world and the mind and your body, all of those things. Right. But what does Ganda is really mean here? And this gets really deep really fast. It means that wisdom itself has emptiness too. The wisdom that you have in your mind is forced upon you by your past karma too. All right. So a mind that's able to catch itself on the couch having a meltdown is forced upon you by a karma. So it's an interesting thing to say. Like, are you able to do anything for yourself? Like, are you able to pull yourself out of your affliction? Are you able to get up and do something different? The ability to get up and get off the couch and go to the pool to write, to do translation, right? To take care of other people is a karma. It's not like I just decided to do it. Right? And by the way, it wasn't that bad. I was just tired. Okay. Eat, sleep, rest, all those things, right? But the mind that can interrupt it is also coming from a karma too. So you should be asking yourself a question. How do you force wisdom to appear in your mind when you need it? Right? Tim, what if it takes me 3 days to think about it? Well, then it took you 3 days, right? You had 3 days of negative seeds going off. And then that changed because things always change. And then you had a different seed. But how do I get more seeds of wisdom? The antidote is not self existent either. Get it? All right. The object that the mind is focused on has emptiness. The mind itself has emptiness. The understanding in the mind has emptiness. Right. How do you get that? How do you get those seeds? Right. And part of what they say is that that comes from really, it comes from helping another being. That somehow by helping someone else, it helps generate the wisdom, the seed of wisdom. And I don't know exactly what it all means. I don't know exactly how it all works, but it feels like to me that when you're helping somebody in need, you're somehow recognizing yourself in them. You're somehow recognizing that what's going on for them is going on for you, and that sucks. How do you get that recognition? That's a seed too. Let's not go, let's not infinitely regress into nothingness. Okay. Don't worry about it. I say don't worry because you're here. If you're here, you already have the seeds. Let's not worry about how you got them. Let's just keep them going. Next. Yeah, just keep swimming. I like that. Let it go in the essence, the source of all things. So he's saying there's two meanings to let it go here. The first meaning of let it go, right, is overcoming the problems of meditation. Right. And this is, we've talked about this ad nauseum in other classes. Okay. Right. Letting go of distractions, letting go of dullness, meaning let's work hard to avoid those two obstacles, being too dull, which means you need to get sleep, but not being too agitated, which means don't drink too much caffeine, mainly. Right. We need to be able to focus on things at will for long periods of time. And then the second thing he says to let go of is letting go of the perception of things as self-existent. All right. So where this previous line is actually about the path of preparation, doing all the things to be able to generate the karma to see emptiness directly. This one is about moving between that second path and into the path of seeing. All right. So the first thing is let it go of the perception of things as self-existent. How do you let go of the perception of things as self-existent? You need to do that in meditation. So you need to get rid of all those other obstacles so that you can actually see this one special object. And so the next one, in between sessions, be a figment of the imagination. So now he's moving very quickly into after you've seen emptiness directly. In between sessions, meaning in between the times that you see emptiness directly. Right. So now we're already like, you know, this is pretty far advanced. And so after you see emptiness directly, there's an expression called the Jeto Geshe, the aftermath wisdom, the subsequent wisdom. And this is the kind of, there's lots of realizations. This is when you realize the four Arya truths and a bunch of other things as well. But what's mainly being discussed about the aftermath is that you finally had a correct perception, that you finally saw things, how things are actually coming from karma. Everything prior to that was incorrect. Even if you have an intellectual understanding of emptiness, you're still believing that things are coming this direction. And so when you come out of that experience, you still see things incorrectly, but you know you're wrong. And that's what he means by being a figment of the imagination, is that an Arya, someone who's seen emptiness directly, knows perfectly that the world isn't how it looks like, that it's not self-existent, and they know it perfectly. It's not just an intellectual exercise. All right, so we're now getting, I mean, we're moving into some deep things really quickly. A second here. Oh, we're gonna run out of time again. You know, we're just give it up. We're gonna have extra classes. I'm sorry. There's just so much to talk about. Okay, there's a whole practice in here. I'm gonna skip. Okay, so he says the three objects, the three poisons, and the three stores of virtue. What the heck does this mean? So we need to, so we learned about the three poisons last class, right? The ignorant liking, meaning wanting things in a way that you might hurt someone else to get them, disliking things to get them away from you in order, and you will do it in a way that will plant bad seeds. And the third thing is just ignorance in general. So what he's saying here is, first of all, three objects. You can sum up everything you perceive into three things: things you like, things you don't like, and things you don't care about, either way. Right. And so then most of our perceptions of those three objects are infected with those three poisons, that you like things ignorantly with misunderstanding, that you didn't understand how you got them in the first place. You dislike things with misunderstanding. All right. And things you don't care about, you also misunderstand too. But it doesn't mean that like a Buddha doesn't like or dislike things. That's not what it's saying. A Buddha, of course, doesn't like certain things. The Buddha doesn't want people to go to hell realms. The Buddha doesn't want you to suffer. The Buddha doesn't like any of those things. But they understand why those things are there in the first place. So the three virtues, what are those things? The three stores of virtues is that your practice should be, and this is great, your practice should be sucking those three poisons from other people all day long. So you should be looking at other people and the objects that they focus on, the things they like, the things they don't like, and the things they don't care about, and removing those things from them. And by doing so, you're creating a tremendous amount of virtue that is opposite to the things you're taking away. How do you take away the three poisons from other people? And this is a whole deep question, and we only have 5 minutes left. Jeez. Okay. He says basically the way to do this is by doing a Tonglen practice, the practice of giving and taking. Let the two ride on the wind. So this is an interesting comment that he's making, and you should think about this. How do you suck the three poisons out of other people when you can't take away their seeds? Why should you be doing Tonglen all day long? Why should you be removing those things from them? Where are you removing them from? Right? You're removing the ignorance in yourself. And so by watching, like, you can learn a lot about someone just by watching them. You can learn a lot of someone just by watching their eyes. What do they like? What do they dislike? What do they not care about? And if you can see the ignorance or the misunderstanding in them, God, you need to how could you take that away from them? Right? Breathing in that misunderstanding and then giving them understanding just with your breath, riding it on the breath. Practice throughout the day. Imagine that you're taking away their problems just with the breath. You're taking away all their worry and pressure. What worries people? It's their misunderstanding. You should be worried about the bad seeds that could ripen. But most of our worry is based in misunderstanding. Excuse me. And then interestingly, there's a comment that says you should start the order of taking of the Tonglen should be starting with yourself. Is that envisioning the future you? Imagine a problem that you'll have later in the day and take away that suffering now. Take away that misunderstanding now. Take away that pain from that suffering person, that future you. Think about that, spending all day just looking at the ignorance around you, and then breathe in and destroy the ignorance, breathe out goodness, right? Give them understanding, give them calmness, give them relaxation. Yes, you can focus on individual problems too, but focusing on the misunderstanding behind the problem as well as taking away the problem is a very, very powerful practice. Why? What the hell does this have to do with anything? What does this have to do with developing a good heart? I'm going to offer $100. Now you're paying attention. I want a specific answer. No, I think some of you might have it in idea. Oh, okay. I think we have a winner. Yes. I'm going to give this to Maria Ichowska. Wow, where are you from? We got the winner right here. Give me your PayPal address. Yes. Because it teaches us to pay attention to other people's problems. Because we spend most of our days ignoring other people. Because we're so focused on ourselves. Okay. We're only thinking about ourselves. We're not thinking about other people. But spending the whole day watching other people and watching their problems, wondering what's going on for them. What's going on in there? What are they misunderstanding in their liking? What are they misunderstanding in their disliking? Where is their misunderstanding in general? Because if they're suffering, they're misunderstanding. Get it? Question: does an Arya still have negative seeds ripen? Yes. But they're cutting out the root of suffering because they understand. They understand why. Right. And then they don't plant bad seeds again. Yeah. So, Maria, send me your PayPal or something similar, and I'll get you $100. There you are. I see you now. Hi. Congratulations. All right. Okay. We'll take a pause there. Oh my gosh. All right. I almost got through the whole class. Yay. Good job, Tim. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining. Happy Monday. Glad you're all here. We'll be back on Thursday. If you want to stay for translation, we'll be doing that in a half an hour as well. Maria, send me a telegram. Do you have Telegram?
Thank you, Tim.
Okay. Here's my Telegram. It's super simple.
Thank you.
All right. Thank
I
you all.
will.
Awesome. Thank you. It's great to see everybody. Thank you, translators, interpreters. Thank you. Thank you, all the tech people. Thank you for everyone who makes this class possible. And we'll be back in a half an hour with some Lam Rim. It's very related to this class, very weirdly. So say goodbye to each other, and we'll see you in about a half hour.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
谢谢老师，
Thank you
谢
so
谢
much,
翻
everyone.
译。
That was so fun.
Thank you, Tim. 谢谢翻译老师。
Thank you very much.
Спасибо. Thank you, Timla. We love you.
Thank you.
Gracias por la clase, Tim. Muchísimas gracias.